I don't think a country like India should be hosting them. There are other countries that have more resources. So why don't they pitch in?
Are our systems and institutions better equipped now to host an event of that scale?
What you're not seeing actually is information and news about people whose land is being taken away on the pretext of these Olympics and hosting these games. It'll mean an absolutely revolutionary change in sports, and I don't see any radical revolutionaries in our government or in our sporting institutions or in SAI or in ministry.
Hello and welcome to the Hindus in Focus podcast. I'm Ruben Joe Joseph. India has big plans and even bigger dreams to host the 2036 Olympics. But before that, the country wants to prove itself on a slightly smaller stage by hosting the 2030 Commonwealth Games. India has officially submitted its bid, proposing Ahmedabad as the host city, with Nigeria being the only other contender. This comes 15 years after the 2010 Delhi Games, the largest multi-sport event India has ever hosted. But this raises plenty of questions. Do mega sporting events really benefit India, or do they simply strain public resources? And can we pull it off this time without the scandals, overruns, and chaos that marred the 2010 Delhi Games? I'm joined today by one of India's top sports journalists and authors, Sharda Ugra, a veteran who's covered sport for over 3 decades, reported from 2 Olympics, and is never afraid to call a spade a spade. Sharda, you've seen both the beauty and the messy side of Indian sport over the years, yet you always seem to bring so much energy and enthusiasm to it, putting the rest of us to shame, I think. But I don't know how you do it, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Ruben. Thank you for inviting me here. Yeah, it's just bizarre, but I just have this thing inside me that I feel, no, this is Indian sports. It's serious. We have to take it seriously. And we have to ask questions of people who have to be asked questions always.
Yeah. Sharda, let's start with the big question. Should India even be bidding to host, the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics right now? Is this the right move for a country still struggling to make a mark on the Olympic stage? Or are we, getting ahead of ourselves?
That's a, question that it kind of splits everyone down the middle. It depends on which side of the argument you are about what sports means to a country. I think in my personal view, I don't think we need to host an Olympic Games yet. Whether we need to host it in to prove anything, it's absolutely no. It should not. That's not the criteria by which a country should judge the health of its sport. And the Commonwealth Games, what are the Commonwealth Games for? Having said that, I think we must remember that the 2010 Games, even though they came with this massive scandal and the messiness attached to it, and people saying, why did not Taj organize this hospital? Why did not Taj run the Games Village, Taj hotels? So you had questions like that. What the 2010 Commonwealth? I'm always against hosting mega events. I love mega events. I love going and visiting them. I don't think a country like India should be hosting them. There are other countries that have more resources. So why don't they pitch in? Why don't they host these big events? And why do we have, say, for example, Nigeria and India being the only 2 candidates for the 2030 Commonwealth Games? What are the organizers trying to pitch these games as to countries like India and Nigeria? What the 2010 Commonwealth Games did do, which you cannot deny, is that it created this massive change in the kind of sports that people took part in and the kind of what it did for the sporting economy of the country. How suddenly there was this big rush of women athletes that have come through in that time, women wrestlers, women boxers. Just the idea of a woman wrestler was not thought about. Say, I've been, like you said, veteran. I've been around for a while. No one was talking about women's wrestling in, say, 2008, 2009. The moment the Commonwealth Games came and they burst open, the idea of it at home in India, it has created literally this revolution. Now, we cannot deny that is an important thing that these big games do. Whether we are not whether the revolution has already not happened enough for us to then move on to other things is of course another question.
Yeah, getting to the 2010 games, it's been 15 years since then. And I think, though, like you said, there are still a lot of good things that came out of it. but there were also, some wrong reasons for why it's remembered, such as the cost overruns, the corruption, and a sense that the legacy didn't quite live up to the hype. But from where you stand today, do you think India has really learned from that experience? Are our systems and institutions better equipped now to host an event of that scale?
I don't think our systems and our institutions treat mega events as something to learn from. It's just to my, when I'm talking systems and institutions, I'm talking about government, Sports Authority of India, ministry. I'm not talking about private things that have come through, which is the big change we've seen in the last 15 years or so of private involvement in setting up academies and in setting up these massive centers of excellence and so on. We have the example recently of the Asian aquatics championship that took place. There was apparently, so I was told by a reporter, there was a block that was broken, like a starting block that was broken. It was not working. And this is the Asian Aquatics Championship. And when this news was published, the journalist and the organization was called and says, why are you publishing all these negative stories? There's another story around the Asian Aquatics about some athletes sitting and crying because they hadn't been told that they had qualified and they missed their call time, and all the very kind of. So why are we still doing those things? We've had the World Para Athletics, which is true, to be fair, is the biggest sporting event organized by India, given the number of countries that were taking part. And you heard stories about that too, that at one side everything was great for television, and around the whole, just outside the frame of the TV, there was. Have you heard the story about the stray dogs? And so, are we ready? No, we're not ready. You can see we're not ready. You can see we're not ready because the systems have not caught up with the rest of the world, as to at least the rest of the advanced sporting world, with how to either run events like this or how to run any kind of sports event in the country. There are exceptions, I'll say, but majority, I would say, no, the systems haven't caught up. They are literally focusing on athletes. That's the big change, on elite athletes. But beyond that, in terms of serving sport to the wider mass of public, to an audience, we are way behind.
Yeah, you say that we're not yet ready, and the systems are not yet ready for that sort of load. But we're still talking by around 5-10 years away, right? Is that still not going to make much of a difference?
It won't make a difference if you don't change the attitude of the people behind these systems and these institutions as to what is the purpose of holding them. And one of the purposes of holding them is to get people to come and watch sport. So how watchable is an Indian sporting experience? They had very small audience there's very little publicity done for the World Para Athletics Championship. You had literally, I'm going by a report that I read recently on ESPN, the ESPN India website, which said there were like 10 and 15 people in the stands. Now, if you're not able to do the basics of this is Delhi, right? It's not being held in Ahmedabad or anywhere else. This is being held in the national capital. So if you are not, holding an event is not just about putting up a television spectacle for, with broadcasters and athletes and media rights. There's more to it. Our view of how sports should be run is fairly narrow in that sense. And the Olympics is just it's another. Why do we want to host the Olympics? What are the Commonwealth Games for is another question. But yeah, so I'm saying the 10-15 years, it'll mean an absolutely revolutionary change in sports, and I don't see any radical revolutionaries in our government or in our sporting institutions or in SAI or in ministry at this point in time.
Yeah. Let's look at the sporting perspective. I think you touched on that a little bit, on how the 2010 games really helped like women wrestlers and a lot of people to come into the sport, different sports for that matter. So is hosting a Commonwealth Games good for Indian sports and athletes? And we'll come to the political and economic aspects in a bit. But just tell me a little bit about how the sort of impact that it has, not just on participation, but also in performance. Or is it just, better optics that we're talking about hosting both a Commonwealth Games and then the Olympics, which India has never done before?
I mean, when you're looking at it, your question is a very valid one about how does it actually help the sporting performance in that sense. You will definitely get a big boost in the performance when a games is held at home, because all your institutions, your federations, and everyone will push everything into being able to get those optics correct. And another thing was pointed out to me once when I was again grumbling about this to somebody about. They said, "Look, do you know how little our countrymen seeing our best athletes compete? Very less. We don't see our hockey team playing all around the country. We don't see our football team playing as much as they should all around the country. So to have and it's basically it's for the athletes that they're playing at home. So I was talking to Abhinav Bindra many years ago. This is just after the Commonwealth Games. He said, "I cannot tell you what it felt like to carry that flag and to walk into the Nehru Stadium for the opening ceremony and have everyone cheer for you." He said, "You never get that no matter what you do, wherever you compete. You cannot deny that feeling." So I felt a little bit humbled and quiet. And whenever athletes say, "Look, it means something to us to have these big events at home," I say, that you can't argue with that. I mean, why should we deny athletes this joy of competing in front of their own, in front of their families, which they don't see? I mean, and the reason why they don't see it is institutional failure. It's systemic failures. It's those big gaps that exist, and you can't do this once every 15 years and make us feel happy for another 15 years of energy, and then you're still doing after 10 years. You're still not having lots of events held in the country and so on. So that is an argument you can make, and definitely there'll be an uptick in performances, and there will be a sort of a resurgence of sport, a fresh impetus. But that's not the only thing I think our sport should be looking at.
Yeah, talking about hosting it at home, and like Bindra said, there is the pride in that for packed stadium. So let's talk about the choice of the venue over here and the choice of Ahmedabad as the proposed city. Surely it has raised some eyebrows given its association with the Prime Minister and his push to, project Gujarat as a model state. Do you think that this bid is as much about a national image and political symbolism as it is about the sport?
It is more a national, exactly what you said about symbolism, national image to the constituents of the country, the people in the country, to make us feel good about ourselves hosting these games. The choice of Ahmedabad it's a regional choice made because the prime minister comes from that state, the home minister comes from that state, and that is not a sporting state. I mean, everybody knows it. It's not a it's not a new it's not a breaking news that Gujarat is not a sporting state at all.
Yeah, it's not like the
Gujarat.
national capital, like how Bindra said it is, and having everyone over there.
Exactly. It's, I mean, national capital, Bangalore, where I live, has a lot of sporting facilities. It is a sporting state. A lot of, there's Bangalore, there's places there's the Andhra, the Hyderabad. You can even say Odisha because they've actually done something they've made big strides in putting sport as part of government policy and sponsoring the hockey team and all of the rest of it. It's Gujarat has not even done that. Gujarat has only said, yeah, that we are going to make the buildings, and we are going to make stadiums, infrastructure development, and that is a very outdated kind of notion in the sense of sport. So the Olympic project and the Commonwealth Games project is very largely a political project. Of this what is it called, patting yourself on the back and feeling good about yourself and saying, "Oh, we've held an Olympic Games. That means we are a sporting nation. That means our sports is great." And those things are not in sync with each other at all. I mean, that's the reason. The really funny stat that everyone is putting out is. And this is not to shame the athletes that come from Gujarat. There are athletes there, but they don't have a history like, say, Punjab has, or Manipur has, or Haryana has, or Kerala has, or any of that. It's not there. And it doesn't mean that every state doesn't have to be a sporting state. But why has the largest sporting spectacle in the world being given to you? Because you're the state that the prime minister comes from. And it's if I'm allowed to see this, I think it's a land grab. I think it's a construction scam. It's all these things that are happening. We're reading about acres and acres of land being bought up for these things. And Paris 2024 has shown us that you don't need to do this large construction mega construction projects to hold an Olympic Games. You need to be able to fit it in with what you have and talk about sustainability and so on.
So tell us a little bit about what you mentioned now about these acres and acres of land that is being used and buildings being, there are a lot of investment that has gone out into this, because everybody in Gujarat now is almost like expecting that to happen now. It's almost like the government has told them that it is a certainty, although the bid is only being filed for the Commonwealth Games and then the Olympics after that. Discussions are going on. But mega events like this, like the Olympics and all, they're sold as economic opportunities, but then sometimes they end up becoming financial burdens, right? And given India's development priorities, this could either be a smart investment or a potential white elephant. And a white elephant is a term that we hear so often when it comes to these big sporting spectacles. So what is Gujarat doing right now, and could this possibly be another white elephant for India?
The question that you're asking is about this thing of what is Indian sport investing in? Is it hardware or software? So what Gujarat is putting its money into is hardware, buildings,
Yeah.
construction projects, construction deals. They set up the Gujarat state government, I think, set up something it called Go Olympic. Then they were told, no, you cannot call it Go Olympic because you cannot use the Olympic name. You haven't got even got the bid. Then they changed the name to Goipics or some absolutely absurd sounding thing. So what you're seeing is this. What you're not seeing actually is information and news about people whose land is being taken away on the pretext of this of these Olympics and hosting these games, protesting and say, what is this? Why are you taking this away from us? And there's a whole corridor, Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar are the two twin cities which are supposed to be this. I was reading 1,000 hectares, 1,000 acres of land has already been taken up. When I did a story for the India Forum, if you could put it in your show notes, about this. And a few days ago, I'll just pause for a second and see if I can get hold of that story. There's a story in the Times of India, which said that Ahmedabad had allocated something like, it's again one of these vast sums of money and vast 200 hectares. I think it says proposed 45-meter wide Sanand SP Ring Road corridor. 82.8 hectares, earlier classified as prime agricultural zone, will now become residential zone. So it's like 200 hectares of agriculture is being agricultural land or whatever is of land is being taken over for this. Ahmedabad's Olympic ambition is the story that was is the thing that was given, and you're saying you haven't even got the bid yet. You're talking about the Olympic Games of 2036. So you're literally 9 years away, 11 years away from that. You don't need to build such a big stadiums, number one. Facilities, why don't you look where there are? And I heard many people talking about India's bid and saying, of course, India should bid because we are a nation going ahead, whatever. And they came up with very interesting themes. People said, let it be in India's Olympics and have these events all over the country where there are places. So it's a sustainability games in that sense also, which is a thing you could think of. Okay. Then you say, let's look at the golden triangle of Agra, Jaipur and Delhi, which is again, there's tourist interest there. There are facilities around. There is hotels there. You can make all these things available. But no, we have gone to Ahmedabad and we have gone to Gandhinagar. So I don't know how many hotels there are in Ahmedabad. I don't know how many. And the whole thing of what time of the year will you stage these events?
Yeah.
What is your climate like? I spoke to an athlete from Gujarat. And I was told, the athlete told me that the athlete cannot, I'm not saying whether it's male or female so as to not reveal their identity. They cannot train after 7 o'clock in the morning because the air quality is so bad.
Oh,
how can you have an Olympics?
That's terrible. Yeah.
So after 7 o'clock in the morning, no training, nothing. Like, outdoor training is what I'm talking about. So these are all the factors that are there, but it's seen as this whole sort of golden sort of El Dorado kind of city that they're making. But I can't, it's not making sense. It's not, it doesn't fit in any logical form or in any logical sequence of what has to happen, how games have to be. All countries trying to host an Olympic Games are now trying to scale down on this construction and this avoid your white elephants. And Paris has taken that an really old city and made it into this modern games and shown us how it can be done. And but here we are seeing roadmaps and plans of new stadiums coming up, and once they're made, what happens after that? What happens once the games are over? So you've seen so many pictures everywhere of stadiums in Brazil, in China, Beijing, in Athens. So that's the white elephant thing that we're stuck in. At least what the Commonwealth Games in Delhi did is that the things that they created, I was able to use their Games Village training pool by doing pay and play. I was able to use that after that for a few years. Just went and paid amount of money, and you could go and swim in a proper 50-meter sort of training pool that was alongside the Commonwealth Games Village at the time. But what will happen after that? I don't know.
You mentioned about Paris Olympics, right? And they did something different now that previous, I think, Olympic hosts had not done. And I think the LA 2028, I heard, is they're planning to host the whole thing on similar lines, being as sustainable as possible and not,
Yes.
creating too many things that will not be used later. Are these two host cities sort of setting a pattern now? Because if we go into 2032 and then 2036, if at all India does win that bid, are we looking at these sort of cities as blueprints for more sustainable Olympics?
I mean, there should be blueprints for more sustainable Olympics, but is that the kind of industry that an Olympic Games in India wants to create? That's the question you have to ask. Is that the kind of economy that an Olympic Games in India intends to create? Every Olympic Games, without, I think even Paris as well. I don't remember whether Paris has got the real numbers of what it costs them. They always have a budget overshoot. Always. They'll say, okay, we'll be able to, when they win the bid, they say, great, in X amount of money, we will be able to organize these games. And then it becomes more than that, at least 20% more, if not more. So it is a very expensive proposition, and therefore you see fewer and fewer countries want to host an Olympic Games. Even the Commonwealth Games, you saw that Durban suddenly pulled out, and then Birmingham, which was going to host 26, they said we are going to host it, and now Glasgow is going to host the 26 Commonwealth Games. So for India to be saying, people don't want to do it because it is a huge cost to the city and cost to taxpayers' money that's going in, that's being spent. So is this, so IOR Games, whether it's the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics, and the Commonwealth Games are only being bid for as a launch pad for the bid
Olympics.
For the 2036 Olympics. They want to say, look, we can do this. We are going to do this right. Unlike, say, Qatar, which is also bidding for the 2036 Games, which has already held the World Cup football, the World Championships of athletics, the World Championships of swimming, the World Championships of shooting already. At its site, it's got stuff ready to do it. So how are you going to compete with that? So I'm saying this whole thing of hosting big events, why haven't you hosted them before? It's been 15 years since the Commonwealth Games. Why didn't you up your organizational capacity and bid to host these events? We are now, I think Ahmedabad is now going to host the police and firemen games or something like that. It's like the Olympics of first responders. Why has nothing been done in the past with what you had?
Yeah. When we look at history, and you're mentioning these countries like Brazil and South Africa that had the Olympics and FIFA World Cup and all of that in the last 10-15 years, they've also had like mixed outcomes and sometimes very adverse as well. So when developing countries, like including us, what lessons can we learn from them, and what must we avoid to, if you want to host the 2030 games?
I mean, the lesson you will learn is that don't host. Host smaller things. Host, say, world championships of very, very specific events. Bring world-class athletes to your country. And so that means you can host it anywhere in the country where you can set up a proper framework to, say, swimming, athletics, gymnastics. So host those. Brazil, for example, hosted both the Olympics and the Football World Cup, one after the other. And therefore it has built this football stadium in the middle of the Amazon jungle, which is now and I
Yeah.
think Manaus is the name of the place. So it just seems weird that you have come and put up this. And I think what happens is that there is a certain degree of in international sporting bodies like IOC or FIFA. There's a certain awareness there that, say, developing countries or BRICS countries or whatever we call ourselves, whichever bracket we belong to, they need this sort of validation of who we are and on the world stage by hosting these events, and therefore they keep saying yes, you should host it here, and they'll support it. But now we've seen that the Olympics has scaled back on how they look at bids. Hopefully there's a certain maturity and understanding there that you can't be bleeding cities dry like they did with Athens, for example, by hosting these games. And you have to also, as Indians, we also have to see the validity of the Commonwealth Games. Why can't we host the Asian Games, say, for example, because that's a bigger part of our identity. And apparently, Keir Starmer, who was the British Prime Minister last year in October, at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, he was trying to push this. Oh, the games have to stay; they have to be there. They are valid. Okay, if they're valid, you pay the money. You host it. You're the British Empire. You took everybody's wealth. That's what's common to all of us. You host it in your countries, whatever that's there on your islands. Please do. We'll come. So why is it being turned on the countries whose wealth has already been stolen by the British Empire once? You have to ask yourself the question of the Commonwealth Games. I mean, I know athletes will get upset, but yeah, that's just a logical question. That's just something that you have to say, look, why us? Do hold it yourself. What does it mean to you? I mean, for us, being part of the Commonwealth is nothing at this point in time. Outside of a games, what is the Commonwealth to us, to countries like India and say Nigeria or whatever? What is it? So yeah.
Yeah, I think the relevance of the Commonwealth Games has been debated for quite some time now. But yeah,
Forever.
looking beyond these infrastructural and economic issues, I think there's also the practical side of it. We're talking about moving thousands of athletes and officials and fans, ensuring smooth transport, accommodation, security, all of these things. And how do you think India fares on that front today? Because do we have that planning culture? Because this is a real logistical, it's going to be a big challenge, right?
It is. I mean, the thing that is key in these mega games, wherever they are held, whichever form of mega they are, and the Olympics is as mega as they get, is your transport systems. That's how quickly and smooth they can move around. Athletes can move from village to venue to wherever it is. And there are so many. The thing about Delhi is that they've done this before. They know how to do it, and it is not as complex or as large an area where all the venues are kind of close to each other. The idea, therefore, of having an Olympics for India, where you'll have the water sports events in the south somewhere, you'll have the running events somewhere up in the north, whatever. That's much more easier to handle. At least if you can have the imagination to come up with this. But Ahmedabad, I don't think anyone put out the classic thing about Ahmedabad at this point is the huge cricket stadium that is built, named after the Prime Minister. It says, oh, we can get people out of the stadium in 30 minutes, which is great, because once they get out of the stadium, then they're in the concourse and they're stuck, because there are only two exits. That is the biggest, that's going to be the main stadium of whatever your Commonwealth or Olympics. So that's your big central stadium that's going to be there. How do you get people to move out? I mean, we've had the biggest sporting tragedy has just taken place in this country in June in Bangalore at the Chinnaswamy Stadium, where there was a stampede. Now your choice is two: either you ask people to come or you say don't come, and then what kind of a games do you have? Tell them not to come because you can't organize crowd, you can't do crowd management, And then they start and give you Kumbh Mela examples and all, which is all nonsense, because a sports event is not the same sort of thing that you can do. It doesn't, and this is over 2 weeks for a city. And Ahmedabad, that area is absolutely compact. All our cities are compact. They're not built. Chandigarh is probably the only one that you can have. I'm thinking about it and saying, could we host an Olympic Games in Chandigarh? I think the people in Chandigarh will say, no, we don't want it. But I think roads there are broader and their traffic is a little bit more organized. They have a better chance of pulling off something like that, rather than say something like Ahmedabad. The way of doing this, though, of saying we are able to do this, let's say the Commonwealth Games, for example, is that you'll shut out everything else. The whole city has to come to a standstill to put this thing up for television, to say, yeah, we can do it. That's the thing. It's basically it's a self-promoting kind of patting yourself on your back, taking your eyes off the actual ball that you should be focusing on, and looking at uh, events and fireworks and all of that.
Yeah, let's talk about the organizers now. A lot of this depends on the Indian Olympic Association, which has had its share of infighting and credibility issues. In fact, even during India's presentation for the 2036 Olympic bid, which they did a couple of months ago, we read credible reports that said the IOC had rebuked the IOA for different lapses. And so, how big a concern is that? And can India really dream big when its biggest sporting institution, or at least the organizing committee in this sense, is still struggling with basic accountability?
Exactly. I mean, the fact that the International Olympic Committee said, please fix your governance, please fix your doping, and then come and talk to us, and this is the story that's there. Indian sports' biggest failure is its governance. It's the reason for why it is what it is its governance lapses, the involvement of politics and politicians, and how much they try and control, and their absolute unwillingness to have professionalization in its management. They cannot bear it, and therefore we are where we are. I mean, we have an athletes commission of the Indian Olympic Association who had very little to say and object with how the women wrestlers who were protesting were treated. I think that is a prime example of why we should not host any mega games, because this is how we treat our athletes. They are literally bottom of, like, back of the queue when it comes to these things. I've just come back from a men's volleyball world championships that was held in Manila, and the prize distribution on that day. Speaking of prize distribution that were controversial, on that stage there was no minister, there was no official. It was athletes, great volleyball players from the past, that gave medals and trophy presentations to the third prize team and the silver medalists as well, the losing finalists. And the winners were given the trophy was passed on from the Philippines team onto the Italians who had won the title. And it was done with complete respect for the athletes. Do you think in India we are going to host a world championships and not have a minister
No,
or a
not a chance.
so then there we are. So we know that this is the quality of our sports governance in this country, and we are dreaming of holding an Olympic Games. That's not to say that the Olympics also doesn't have various personages of designations come and give trophies, but you have to be looking ahead. You have to say, let's do this differently. I mean, you have everything is controlled and dominated, and I mean, politicians feel so insecure if they don't have a place on the stage. So how can a country like this be hold a Commonwealth or a Olympic Games? I don't see. As in, why should they? Of course, how they can we know, but why should they? Why should they be given an Olympic Games if this is how generally you treat athletes? This is what your view is of sporting governance.
Yeah. And finally, just talking about looking ahead, like you mentioned, you suggested a few things, like hosting smaller events, allowing other states and cities to really make use of the sporting infrastructure and everything that they have, and also the
Yes.
culture that they have. But what would you say that India should instead be prioritizing on? Is it on grassroots level training, invest more of the money in that rather than infrastructure and things like that? How can Indian sport look ahead now instead of bidding for these big event games?
So there was the governing the sports policy that was just formulated a few months ago is a very interesting one for a change, because it talks about using sport as a vehicle for many things, for education, in health, and all other sort of structures, and talks about athletic support. And so in a way, if you must hold big events, nobody's saying you shouldn't. You do hold chess Olympiads, and you'll have a world championship in something or the other. But there should be more of that, because then you're able to get people to watch high quality sport, in the country. I'm all for that. But in the same, then prioritizing the mass, turning sport into a mass exercise, like basically sport for all, access to everything. So that is and you're looking at it, everyone say, oh, sport is a state subject. Sport is a state subject. So why are you not making more demands on the states? Why are not national federations pushing their states to say, how many events are you holding? I want to know, if you are not holding these events, why are you not holding them? I think what our athletes lack at all levels, all the way from the bottom to the top in India particularly, is enough game time, enough events that are held. So I repeat myself when I say this, that the slogan of the IPL is where talent meets opportunity. In India, in Indian sports, there is so much talent, but the opportunities to show that talent, or to be to express that talent, or for us to see that talent, are very, very, very limited. Our athletes play very little. We have no proper structure of how an individual event is held. I mean, I know that there are people doing random things by themselves all over the country. There is this ocean-based swimming that goes on. It's really done in little pockets, but it's not done at a sustained level. There are no, all our athletes do, our elite teams do. They'll be sitting in camp the whole time because they don't have a league to play in. The hockey has just restarted its league. So the whole idea of giving agency and freedom to athletes to compete in a calendar of events through the year, so they're always playing, they're always competing, is just not part of the psyche. The thing about cricket has many, many, many faults, as we know, but the fact that you have those 2,000 matches a year, that everyone gets to play so many games, that kind of thing is not reflected in other sports. There are very few. It's increasing a little bit now. The sporting calendars of every you have to go and ask them and say, how many events do you hold? So there's a classic, and how do you conduct it? There's a classic photograph on social media at one point where they had a wrestling national wrestling championships held in some general stadium in Delhi, and national wrestling championships held at the IIS Institute in Bellary, and you could just see the difference in what was professionally run and what was run by the national federation that had organized it. So those are the things that you have to focus on more. You have to give all athletes at all levels chances to play more. But say if politicians control it, who cares about that? They don't want to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, on that note, I think we'll have to come to an end of this episode. Like you spoke about, more access, more playtime, better systems. These are all a lot of things for the Indian sporting community and administrators to really ponder on. Meanwhile, the Commonwealth Sport.
I mean, I think, sorry, I'll just interrupt you here, Ruben, once.
Yeah, sure.
Professionalizing administration, giving your administration over to professionals to handle it, who will do your marketing, who will do your event planning, who will do your finance, generating of finance and all the rest of it, and sit back on your hands and say, okay, I'll go and sit on the stage once and give some trophy. Just give it over to professionals and give them the power to do things, because there's so much energy at this point in Indian sport. You can see it around you all the time. There's stuff happening, people are doing things, but they just get stuck at that sort of level where they run into some federation guy saying whatever. It could be state federations. I mean, they are the ones that do the voting, and once you get into voting, then there's no end, of how it's going to run for vote chori.
Yeah. A real change in mentality, I think, also is required at every level.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the Commonwealth Sport, the international body, when announced the 2030 host city in late November, then we'll get to know whether India does get to host the games. I think there's a lot of confidence from the Gujarat and union governments, and
people are saying in Ahmedabad that the games are coming. We are getting the Olympics. Never mind Commonwealth. We are getting the Olympics. It's here. It's already done. It's a done deal.
Yeah, like you said, the ambition and the dream alone is not enough. It has to be our infrastructure system, the culture at different levels that still has a long way to go.
Hardware and software. Software is people. What do you think of the people that are in sport?
Yeah, I think the dream is inspiring, but the truth, after all, is a little bittersweet.
Yes.
So, Shraddha, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. There is a lot for us to think about, and hopefully these administrators and people at different levels will take the right decisions. Thank you so much, Shraddha, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Me and for listening to my very long answers, but thank you so much.
No problem at all. We enjoy that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.